Okay, so picture this. A brilliant thinker, someone who studied under both Ludwig Wittgenstein and Carl Jung. I mean, what a combination, right? Now imagine this person sets out to solve psychology's deepest, most fundamental identity crisis. But then their life is tragically cut short in an accident, leaving behind just the scattered pages of a manuscript, a kind of unfinished masterpiece with a radical new vision for what psychology could even be. Well, that's not a movie plot. That is the very real story of Evangelos Christou and his book, The Logos of the Soul, a text that basically asks us to rethink everything we thought we knew about studying the human experience.
I mean, just look at his journey. It's extraordinary. He starts in 1945, right in the heart of British analytic philosophy, studying with Wittgenstein at Cambridge. Then, just 3 years later, he pivots completely and heads to the epicenter of depth psychology, the Jung Institute in Zurich. Now, this wasn't just a change of address, it was a profound attempt to synthesize two worlds that most people thought were totally irreconcilable: the world of analytic rigor and the world of symbolic depth. And that synthesis, well, that became the very core of his life's work. Then, in 1956, the tragedy. The pages found at the scene of his fatal car crash were eventually pieced together and finally published 7 years later.
So what was this incredible manuscript all about? Well, it was nothing less than an attempt to solve a problem that, let's be honest, still haunts the field today. Christou looked at psychology in the mid-20th century, with behaviorism really taking off, and he saw a field that was just completely confused about what it was supposed to be. He was asking the biggest question of all. What is psychology really? What is its proper subject?
Okay, so what exactly was this crisis he was seeing? Christou's main diagnosis was that psychology was being ripped apart. He saw it trying to serve two completely different intellectual masters, caught between two powerful but ultimately incomplete ways of understanding what it means to be human. And for him, this wasn't just some little academic squabble. It was a deep, philosophical split right down the middle of the field.
He saw this schism creating two totally different projects. On one side, you have the logic of natural science. Its whole goal is objective explanation. Its domain is the physical body, its method is finding causes, and its data is what you can see and measure. On the other side, you've got the logic of philosophy. Its goal is interpretive understanding, its domain is the abstract mind, its method is logical analysis, and its data is language and ideas. And for Christou, these were both totally valid, but they were also totally separate.
And this is where Christou really drops the hammer. He says, look, this great divide leaves a massive, gaping hole right in the middle. If one logic deals with the body and the other deals with the mind, what's left for the very thing psychology was named after? The psyche, the Greek word for soul. He argued that we either reduce the soul to biology and behavior, or we reduce it to abstract philosophical concepts. We had no language left for the thing itself.
So what was his solution? It wasn't to pick a side, and it wasn't to try and clumsily stitch the two together. No, he proposed something much more radical: a declaration of independence. He envisioned a third way, a totally new, autonomous science dedicated specifically to the reality of the soul. One that would have its own logic, its own data, and its own methods.
And he puts it so beautifully here. A machine can think, a camera can record an image, but neither one of them experiences what it's doing. For Christou, that indefinable something, that raw capacity for subjective experience, that is the soul. It's the very thing that makes us human, and it's the one thing that both pure science and pure philosophy were totally missing. So, if you're going to have a new science, you need data. What's the data for this science of the soul? It's not just physical sensations or logical concepts. It's what he called psychological experience. This is such a crucial term. It's all about the subjective reality of our inner life, the experiencing of seeing, not just the biological act of vision, the experiencing of a thought, not just the logical content of the idea. It's the whole inner movie. You see the shift? It's subtle, but it is absolutely profound. I see is a statement of fact about perception. You could measure it. But I experience that I see. Now that is a statement about the soul. It includes the fact of perception, sure, but it adds the entire rich, meaningful, subjective world in which that perception is happening. And that, he said, is the proper subject of psychology.
Okay, so if the data of your science is subjective experience, then your method for collecting that data has to be radically different too, right? You can't study the experiencing of a thought with the same objective tools you use to study falling apples or logical fallacies. Christou is adamant. Psychology needed a totally new way of observing.
And this contrast just lays out the revolution he was proposing perfectly. Mainstream science wants the observer to be like a photographic plate, a neutral instrument, just recording the facts. But in Christou's psychology, the observer is a participant in a drama. Your own subjectivity, your own experience, isn't some contamination you have to get rid of. No, it is a vital part of the observation itself.
What this really means is that the psychologist can never be just a neutral spectator on the sidelines. Think about it like you're watching a play. The meaning isn't just in the script, it's released in the experience of the performance, right? Christou argued that the meaning of a psychological event is only fully there when it's truly experienced by the observer, when it resonates with their own soul.
And this all leads to a really unique idea of what a scientific method is. For Christou, something like psychotherapy isn't just a tool for discovering facts about a patient. It is, at the very same time, a tool for the transformation of both the patient and the therapist. The act of inquiry is also an act of personal growth. It is a means of discovery, for sure, but it is also a means of becoming.
So what we have here is this incredibly profound, challenging, and really elegant framework for psychology, which, of course, brings up the big question. If it's so brilliant, why isn't it better known? Why did this incredible manuscript, which Jung himself supposedly championed, pretty much just disappear into the margins of history? Well, the simplest answer is that Christou's work just didn't fit anywhere. Because it was a true synthesis, it was basically an outsider to every single camp. For the mainstream scientific psychologists, it was way too philosophical. For the rising humanistic and phenomenological thinkers who were kind of anti-science, Christou's insistence on a logical, scientific framework felt totally alien. And for almost everyone else, his deep roots in Jungian psychology made it a non-starter. He was, in short, a man without an intellectual country.
But as the scholar Robert Kugelmann suggests, maybe that historical neglect isn't the final word. Because the problem Christou identified, psychology's split personality, it hasn't gone away. If anything, it's gotten more pronounced. Maybe the world is only now, finally, getting ready to hear what Christou was trying to tell us.
And that leaves us with a really challenging thought for today. As we map the human brain with more and more precision, and as we build AI that can mimic human thought, Christou's question just seems to echo louder than ever. We have this incredibly powerful language for the brain, as a machine, and for the mind as a computer. But do we still have a language for that indefinable something he called the soul? Christou's unfinished manuscript suggests that finding one just might be psychology's most urgent and most important unfinished task.